Hey everybody, Chad Wesley Smith here for Juggernaut Training Systems, joined by a special guest, world record holder, Marisa Inda. How you doing, Marisa?
I'm doing good.
All right. So, you may have seen Marissa's video where she kind of recaps her performance at the Arnold, where she set the 52 kilo all-time total world record with a 330 pound, 150 kilo squat, 92 and a half kilo 204 pound bench, and a 187 and a half kilo, 413 pound deadlift. That was at the Arnold Grand Prix. So you've gotten her perspective and seen the lifts. Now we want to talk about some of the important things that we think go into her training and what makes these lifts possible. So I'm going to give you a bit of a coaching perspective. She's going to give you the athlete's perspective. I've been coaching Marisa since just after 2014 Worlds in South Africa. And at the time, well, I know at those Worlds, I think you squatted 270, benched 165, and deadlifted
340 something.
Yeah, I think 341. So those would all be about maybe 8 rep maxes currently. The bench, probably more like a 10 rep max. So we've had great improvements, and the program has evolved throughout the last almost 3 years. But I think the core principles are really important, and really important things that maybe are a little bit distinct from other top female lifters training. And so that's what we want to explore. So the first thing that is, if you're familiar with our channel and is distinct maybe to the way that I write programs versus daily undulating periodization or a concurrent system, is that we have distinct phases, sets of 6 to 10 reps, times of sets to 3 to 6 reps, and then a distinct peaking phase where it's sets of 1, 2, and 3. And I see so many lifters out there, particularly female lifters, well, I guess all types of lifters, but looking at Marissa's competitors who are spending so much more time in just sets of 1, sets of 2, sets of 3, maybe the occasional 4 to 5, but seem to be lacking this hypertrophy phase. And muscle lifts weights. That's what you have to lift the weights. And in the long-term training process, being the most successful as possible in the long term, someone with more muscle is going to be able to eventually lift more weights. So Marisa comes from more of a bodybuilding physique background, so she already had more muscle. If you stand her next to all the other 52 kilo class lifters, that's probably the most distinct thing that jumps out. Much more muscular, bigger quads, bigger shoulders, bigger arms. I think maybe people discount how small you actually are. What size shoe do you wear?
I wear a 2.5, sometimes a 3.
And sometimes a 1.
Well, it depends. Some shoes are manufactured much smaller than they really are in real life.
So size 1 shoes, and it's just very small framed. So she just has a ton of muscle on her frame, as much as you could really imagine for someone who weighs about 114 pounds. So tell me, how do you think that this, your background in bodybuilding and then the higher volume hypertrophy work has impacted your performance?
I think it's helped tremendously. One, because when you're doing more volume, you're building work capacity, you're also learning and honing in good technique. So I think if you're just spending all your time doing 1 and 3 rep maxes all of the time, you're not really, honing in good technique, not practicing.
So we have plenty of other information about this, the hypertrophy guide videos with Dr. Mike, our principle of overload video, building a strength phase, designing a peaking block, all those, go check them out. Of course, 1 to 3 reps is important and the most specific thing you can do, and we'll talk about that a bit more, but do not neglect all the phases. They all work together. That's the concept of phase potentiation, using those higher volume to potentiate, to improve the potential of the subsequent training blocks. Something that's really nice for me from a coach's perspective, and I think something that's helped Marisa stay healthy and be very successful, is she sticks to the plan. And for coaches out there, and if you follow one of the best Instagram accounts at Frustrated Strength Coach, you'll see that as they talk about the frustrations of athletes not sticking to the plan. And it's 3 things that it really takes to stick to the plan and why it's important. All right, it takes maturity and discipline, and it shows that about a lifter. And it takes thinking about long-term progress over anything else. And those are something that I think Marisa has done exceptionally well. A part of that maturity and discipline is attention to the athlete's body weight. When you're dealing with 2-hour weigh-ins and and low weight classes, even more so than a little bit higher weight classes, you've got to stick to around the same body weight. So where are you usually walking around at?
It fluctuates. Low for 112, high up to 116. I usually do not get above 116 at any point.
116 is a whopping 1.6 pounds above the weight class. And even when she's saying that she gets as high as 116, I still think that that's a little bit dubious if we're going off just morning, empty body weight. But another important part of sticking to the plan, I think Marisa does a great job of and has served her really well, is that even on those days where she could push it an extra 5 or 10 pounds or could push it another rep, that she has the discipline to stay within the plan and understand that adding 5 or 10 extra pounds or taking a set to absolute limit and failure has a ripple effect beyond just that day of training. Nothing you do happens in a vacuum. You don't just train today and have the best, hardest day ever and then move on to the next day and have the best, hardest day ever again, and so on and so forth. The fatigue accumulates, and a really hard squat day on Monday may impact the bench on Tuesday, may impact the deadlift on Wednesday. And probably the same way that I am in my training, it's maybe a mix of discipline and laziness. It's like, as you become more experienced, it's like you know what's going to happen, you know how you're going to feel after. So it's maybe a bit easier to be reserved and not push at those extra 10 pounds, even if it is a day that you're feeling great. I think something that's also been great is that you understand what the most important lift is, the total. The total lift is the only one that matters. You can have the biggest squat or the biggest bench or the biggest deadlift, but if it's not adding up to the biggest total possible, it doesn't really matter because that's the sport, that's powerlifting.
If you look at Sophia Loft, who's a world champion for the last 3 years, she doesn't own a world record in any single lift. She owns it in the total, which is why she wins.
She owned it in the total.
Yes. Well, I mean, she was at...
And then finally, to that effect, particularly for female lifters, understand it takes time. This past weekend here at Juggernaut HQ, we hosted the Iron Sisters event with Marisa, Bonica Law, Kim Walford, and Jen Thompson. And especially for you, Kim, and Jen, decades of training. Even though Jen Thompson told me at her first meet ever, she benched 236. That was in 1999. It's 2017 and she's benching 315 or 317. That's 18 years of work. That's as long as some of the competitors now have been alive.
Especially for women, it takes time to put on muscle. We're not guys, we don't have male hormones, so it's going to take a lot more time.
Yeah, and you've been training hard for...
Since I was 17, so...
8 years. Or maybe my math is off. 23 years. Master of disaster.
That's exactly right.
And same thing for Kim. Kim has been training hard for 25 years. So it takes time, especially the bench press is pound by pound by pound. I think something that's been very helpful is you take your accessory work seriously. Something you do much better than your coach personally does. But
I've seen you do some GHRs once.
How do you think that focus on the accessory work on top of the primary lifts has helped you?
Well, of course, it's building muscle. It's, increasing strength and all those stabilizing muscles. I think it's helped prevent injuries because, you're not just focusing again on the big three. You're trying to build a well-rounded physique. It's one of the things like people take bodybuilding and they make fun of them, but the whole point of bodybuilding is to not miss any area in your body. You're looking in the mirror, you're bringing up weaknesses. So I think it's helped me just build muscle everywhere I need it.
And I think particularly for that time from age 17 to age about 36 when I started coaching you, where you had much more of the bodybuilding style of training, that now as we've transitioned to more specific training and more focused on the lifts, that's a natural progression, a long-term progression that all athletes, but female athletes in particular, really need to be mindful of. You've got to build up the volume in the primary lifts because that's the most bang for your buck, but then don't just be about the primary lifts, overly specific training when you're not ready for overly specific training. Again, this was 20 years, 19 years of bodybuilding style training, and then with 4 years of powerlifting style training on top of it. So if you've been lifting for 4 years and the last 3 of them have been spent just squat, bench, and deadlift and close variations, you need to take a step back do more bodybuilding style work, build more muscle, because that's what's going to lift the weights. And this is going to be true for everyone, but probably even more so for masters athletes, masters of disaster, is prioritizing recovery. How much do you train?
I train 4 to 5 days a week, and it takes me about an hour max.
And so 4 to 5 hours a week of training. And granted, she trains very fast, and there's scheduling limitations that dictate that. But you see people out there doing 4, 5, 6 training sessions a week, 2 to 4 hours per session, and it's hard to say on a broad basis that they're maybe exceeding their maximum recoverable volume or training at the top of their maximum adaptable volume too much. But here we have you, best lifter in the world ever now at 52 kilos, the 4th highest Wilks score ever in the IPF for a female, training 4 to 5 hours a week, maybe 4 to 6 hours a week on some of the higher volume stuff. But even today, I mean, you did 6 sets of 10 bench and then dumbbell bench and accessories and probably 45 minutes. And some handstands. I gotta have time for handstands. But so not training too much, not exceeding your MRV, and it's tough, especially when you're new and you're so enthusiastic about what you're doing, to rein that in and understand this is, even though maybe you could do more, you're not going to optimally recover from that. Another part of that's going to be planned deloads. And I talk about this extensively in our video on fatigue management, so check out that link and go watch that. But if you're not deloading in your training, your hard training is probably not hard enough, and then you're not properly managing the fatigue that you're accumulating from week to week. Of course, anyone who sees your physique can tell you're paying great attention to your nutrition. We have plenty of videos of that. Marisa has been doing this for so long that you don't have a very restrictive diet, but
in the beginning I did. In the beginning I would weigh, measure. Obviously when you're doing bodybuilding, it's more of how you look on stage versus how you perform on stage. Now I've kind of switched into more performance style eating, but because I do have more muscle and I've been doing it so long, I tend to stay relatively leaner probably than the rest without trying as hard.
We talked about specific phases, dedicated phases to these different rep ranges and the goals of hypertrophy, general strength, and peaking. So we become more specific as the meet approaches. Everything is important. Specificity is important and creates a umbrella for which all the other principles operate under. But there are times when that specificity means developing the underlying systems of powerlifting success, which could be building muscle, which means higher rep training, which is inherently less specific. But as we approach the meet, everything becomes more and more specific. Our exercise selection becomes pared down to really just the competitive exercises and a limited amount of accessory work. We get into doing more singles. The most specific thing that a powerlifter can do is a max single. So we've tweaked the peaking block a little bit these last couple meets with great success, particularly in the squat. And we'll go to the whiteboard and I'll show you how that gets set up. All right, so we're going to give you a little bit of a insight to the way we structure Marisa's peaking block, the most specific part of her training. Good peaking doesn't just start with the peaking block. It starts at the beginning of the whole training cycle with the general training, with the hypertrophy training. And you have to do that work to build, to finally get to this part, peaking block. Marisa does a 1 month peak, three weeks, about let's call it an 8-day taper. Her hardest workout is usually 10 days, or last really, really hard workouts, usually 10 days out, but she still trains pretty hard, 7 to 8 days out, and then we taper and prime her body for a competition from there on in. So with this, we're doing very low volume training, and to still get stimulus from that, especially when considering Marisa's height, the bar is not moving very far, her absolute strength, which while she's incredibly strong, the strongest ever at her weight class, it's not 800, 900 pounds on a bar, so she can tolerate more frequent training, and females in general can tolerate more frequent, relatively higher intensity training. So with that, she's going to deadlift. Her primary deadlift day is on Monday, with some secondary deadlift technique work on Friday. She squats 3 times a week, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, in a medium, low, high, or medium, light, heavy rotation. This 3 time a week squatting is unique. It's the only time during her training cycle that she squats 3 times a week, minus maybe some belt squats on a 3rd day during hypertrophy, but with 3 hard low bar competition style squat workouts. And she's doing this to build confidence more than anything. Marisa struggled for a long time with confidence and max singles in the squat, so we figured what better way to fix that than by practicing. So we've done this for the last 2 meets. Nationals, where she squatted 319, which was a 16-pound to 7.5 kilo PR, and then here at the Arnold Grand Prix, where she squatted 330 for another 5 kilo, 11-pound PR. So we have the 3 time a week squatting, medium, light, heavy, and then 3 time a week benching. Here would be our medium day, Wednesday our heavy day, and then Saturday a light day, more accessory work to keep some volume in. Because the muscles of the upper body are smaller than the muscles of the lower body, they will become detrained more quickly, particularly for female athletes with lower, absence of testosterone or near absence of testosterone. So the bench volume needs to stay a little bit higher to keep fitness up for the bench press. So that's why on these Friday workouts, this is maybe 3 to 5 sets of 5. The second one, 3 to 5 sets of 4. This third one, 3 to 5 sets of 3. So each week we're just progressing the weights up a little bit. Here on the medium day, the squat, the first time around we did it as what we were thinking was about a second attempt. This time, because the weights were getting heavier, which are causing more neural fatigue, we now drop these to about an opener, around the opener. This is, maybe a last warm up, and then this is second, third attempt. So that's 303, 286, 324. Here, 4 weeks out, last heavy deadlift workout. She did that as 356 for a single, and then I believe 374 or 380 for a single, and then finished up at 396. And we went to the meet, and she went 363, 396, 413. So 3 hard singles. The deadlift, the most neurally taxing, especially for a conventional puller like Marisa, especially when the weight is that heavy, that relatively heavy, almost 4 times body weight for her, usually weighing between 112 and 114. You can't pull heavy singles all the time. You can practice your technique of the deadlift, and again, we're doing that hard deadlifting on Monday, technical deadlift work on Friday, but trying to pull multiple maxes during the same week, whether that's 1, 2, 3, however many reps, it's probably going to be too difficult to recover from for most athletes. The second week, deadlifts is, because this day was going to be so neurally taxing, the neurological SRA curve is the longest. You can learn more about that in our Principle of SRA video. Here we're going to have more neurological fatigue accumulated from the previous week. So she did 5 singles at 335. Still challenging weight, not a walk in the park. Enough weight to let her feel that her technique, feel what her technique needs to be like, but not so much to drive her into more and more accumulated fatigue. Bumping the weights up a little bit again on the squat and bench. This Monday is a moderate single, between a first and second attempt for her. You can train closer to the max in the bench press more often because the weights just aren't as heavy. So she went 193 here in week 1, 198 with some back down sets. Again, you can click through the link in this video and see the entire program, every set, every rep, with the weights Marisa did, also with corresponding percentages to that. So a little bit heavier here. Now on Wednesday, or heavy bench day, she went up to 204, the same as what she benched in the meet, increasing the weight of the squat, but still, maybe a little bit heavier than the last warm-up. Her last warm-up was 286, and then she opened at 308. So here we did 292. So a hard, a single, but not a, probably a 7 RPE single, something that she can feel her best technique on, but not be too challenging to her body. Then Friday, our heavy squat day, up to 330. Both 324 is a lifetime PR, 330 another lifetime PR. Deadlift technique, and again, that bench accessory work to keep the fitness high for the bench press. Finally, in this last week, we switched the days around a little bit, putting the heaviest squat day with the heaviest bench day on Wednesday, just giving her a little bit of extra time to decay fatigue into the meet. So with that, to allow her to be better prepared, we switch the light squat day from Wednesday to Monday during week 3. She goes up to a relatively hard deadlift, 374, 5 kilos above what our opening attempt is at the meet. Something to keep fitness high, to keep her in touch with those heavy weights in the deadlift, but not so much to blow out her neural fatigue and not allow her to be properly recovered, managing that fitness fatigue relationship as we head into the meet. So a hard deadlift, moderately hard squat, another moderately hard bench. That was her second attempt at the meet, and her bench was going phenomenally this whole training cycle. Wednesday, heaviest squat. We just repeated 330. We probably could have gone up to 336 in that training cycle if we needed to, but looking at the numbers, looking at the strategy for the meet, we knew 330 is the number, If you squat 330, we're going to set ourselves up for the record. We're going to set ourselves up for the win. So we just went for 330 again, build confidence. The more times she does that weight, the better she's going to know every time she walks up to it, she's going to make it. Same thing in the bench. We knew 204 was the number. Even though she smoked 204 the previous week, and yeah, we probably could have gone to 209, stuck with 204. We know 330, 204, then you're going to be pulling for the win in the record. So we just practiced that weight. Then we went to more of our medium squat day here on Friday, again with the deadlift technique. Still some bench accessories to keep fitness up. Taper workout, and then finally the competition. Traveled on Thursday here out to Ohio. We get in on Thursday night or there on Friday morning. Just do a light workout, kind of warm up, stretch, go through the motions, maybe work with an empty bar, maybe 135. Stay in touch with your technique, but not adding any fatigue. These taper workouts. Singles. Here would be 3 singles in the squat, 3 singles in the bench, 3 singles in the deadlift. In the squat, about 65 to 75%, 70 to 80%. In the bench, about 5% higher than that. In the deadlift, about 5% lower, 10% lower than what we did in the squat. The next taper workout, we take about 10% off of all of those, 20% off in the deadlift. So it's just ingraining the technique, technical prowess, neurological adaptations. Those are our goals for the peaking block. That's what we've achieved very, very successfully with this peaking block. 2 meets in a row for a big win at Nationals, and Marisa's first 500 Wilks, a 519 Wilks at Nationals, where she totaled 410, 904 pounds. And then again, very similar training cycle, just bumping the weights up in the next peaking block for that world record total, 430 kilos, 948 pounds, IPF world record, all federations, all-time world record total for Marisa, 948 at 114. This is how the peaking block was set up. Click the link through in the video information to see her full training cycle and maybe get some ideas of how you could apply it for yourself. And then finally, the last thing I think has been extremely important, and again, a great testament to maturity, patience, diligence, trusting the program, is that you only have to be your max strength at the meet. That's the only time that it matters that you can lift the absolute most weight possible. During this world record training cycle, Marisa did 1 max single deadlift, 1 true single, not as heavy as she absolutely could. We went to 396 in the gym and then pulled 413 at the meet, but only 1 really hard single in the deadlift. 3 max benches. You know, so it's not every week testing, it's not daily maxing. It's building, practice the single, test it, show it off when it matters. And then finally we do more heavy singles in the squat, and that's more of a confidence issue, more psychological than physiological really. But again, even though she's doing 3 heavy singles a week, really I would only consider 2 or 3 of those maxes, doing other rep maxes throughout. But it's not about heavy singles because those are so taxing to the nervous system. Those are so, potentially injurious, a higher chance of injury the more weight that you have on the bar. And it's just too much focus on the short term and a lack of confidence that you will be ready when it matters, and you don't have to see if you're ready now to know that you're going to be ready when it really counts. So the most of our time is spent in 4 to 10 reps, and just those last about 3 weeks of training is the singles, doubles, and triples. Anything else you feel has been really big for your training?
Altering like the setup of when we put the squat in, because before my back would be sore from deads and then having to squat heavy. So I think switching those heavy days helped a lot. And not missing any lifts. We just didn't miss any lifts in training, so definitely builds confidence.
That was a good training cycle in that regard. So again, to quickly recap, the real important stuff we see about Marisa's training: distinct phases, applying phase potentiation, sticking to the plan, showing maturity, discipline, trust in the process, taking her accessories seriously, focusing on building muscle, prioritizing recovery, and then again trusting in the process, knowing that she only has to be the strongest that she is one day, the one day that matters at the meet. All the time before that is preparing for that one day, not testing to see if you're already ready. So if you want to learn more about her training, you can follow the link through the end of this video and actually get a look at the full training cycle that Marisa used to break the world record total at the Arnold Grand Prix. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe to the channel. Get expert program design, video analysis, and guidance for powerlifting and weightlifting, whether you're a beginner, intermediate, or advanced athlete, through Team Juggernaut's online coaching. Click Learn More to sign up.